Vladimir Putin just lost the one man inside Europe who was quietly winning his war for him, and the fallout is already changing everything for Ukraine. For over 16 years, one man inside the European Union did more damage to Ukraine's war effort than most Russian generals ever could, not with weapons, not with soldiers, but with a pen, a veto, and a direct line to the Kremlin. That man was Viktor Orbán, and as of this week, he is finished. If you want to understand why this moment could be a turning point in the war, stay with us, because what just happened in Hungary goes far deeper than a single election. And if you follow geopolitics, hit subscribe right now. We break these developments down every single day. His name is Péter Magyar. His party, TISZA, just won 53% of the vote and secured 141 of 199 parliamentary seats in Hungary's National Assembly, a supermajority that obliterates any path for Orbán's Fidesz party to resist. 16 years of authoritarian control, media suppression, and quiet collaboration with Moscow ended in a single night. Hungarian President Tamás Szulajok has already agreed to accelerate the transition, with the new parliament convening as early as May 4th. Orban has less than 2 weeks left in office. The political corpse is simply waiting for its burial. Magyar is not wasting a single hour. Within days of his victory, he announced plans to install independent editors at state broadcasters that Orban had turned into personal propaganda machines. He has pledged a 2-term limit for future Hungarian leaders, effectively slamming the door on any Orban comeback. He has vowed to seize state shares in Hungary's largest oil and pharmaceutical corporations, assets funneled into so-called academic foundations that existed purely to finance pro-Orban messaging. And in perhaps the most symbolic move of all, Magyar has refused to occupy Orban's palatial office in Buda Castle. He will govern near the parliamentary buildings, among the people, not above them. Stay with us, because what comes next is where this story gets truly explosive for the war in Ukraine. Now here is where Putin's real nightmare begins. Because Orban was never valuable to Russia as a military partner, Hungary is a nation of fewer than 10 million people with just over 40,000 active military personnel, roughly the number of soldiers Russia lost in a single month in Ukraine. Orban's value to Putin was never on the battlefield. It was inside the corridors of Brussels. Every time the EU moved to support Ukraine, Orban was there to slow it, dilute it, or kill it entirely. He was Putin's bureaucratic assassin, deployed to bleed time, block funding, and fracture the appearance of Western unity. The consequences of that obstruction are now sitting in plain sight. The European Union approved a $9 billion loan for Ukraine, backed by frozen Russian assets, months ago. Ukraine has not received a single dollar of it. The reason? Orban. He refused to sign off unless Ukraine agreed to restore the flow of Russian oil through the damaged Druzhba pipeline, a demand so brazen it read less like a political condition and more like a Kremlin instruction. With Orban gone, EU ambassadors are already in Brussels working to release that money. The first disbursement could reach Ukraine as early as May, and Ukraine has already made clear what it intends to buy. Patriot interceptor missiles to shield its cities from Russia's ballistic barrage, and Storm Shadow cruise missiles to strike back across occupied territories and the Black Sea. But the damage Orban inflicted ran even deeper than blocked money. In early April, Reuters reported that Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Magyar had offered Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov direct copies of sensitive EU documents related to Ukraine's accession to the European Union. Separate recordings revealed that Szijjártó had actively coordinated with Russian officials to identify ways to weaken sanctions on targeted Russian individuals. This was not political disagreement. This was espionage dressed in diplomatic clothing, conducted from inside the EU itself. That pipeline into the heart of European strategy is now being shut down. With Orban removed, the ripple effects extend well beyond any single loan or leaked document. The EU can now move on Ukraine-related sanctions without navigating Orban's endless procedural obstruction. Hungary will no longer stand as a roadblock to Ukraine's path toward EU and NATO integration. and the back-channel flow of sensitive information from Brussels to Moscow through Budapest stops. Ukraine gets more money, faster decisions, and far fewer leaks. Russia gets none of the above. The Kremlin's initial response confirmed everything. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announced that Hungary had lost its privileged status with Russia and would now be treated like any other hostile European state. Then, in a statement of breathtaking audacity, Peskov added that Russia had never actually been friends with Orban at all, the same Orban who compared himself to a mouse helping Putin's lion just weeks ago. This is not composure. This is panic wearing a suit. Russia also moved quickly to poison the election's legitimacy before the results were even certified. State-aligned channels spread fabricated stories claiming Magyar had secretly used humanitarian missions to funnel aid to Ukraine. They accused him of embezzlement. They warned Hungarian voters he would immediately reinstate a military draft. None of it worked. The Hungarian people saw through it, and that fact alone sends a warning to every nation where Putin has been running the same playbook. If Hungary could break free, so can they. There are honest caveats worth stating clearly. Magyar is not going to transform Hungary into a frontline ally for Ukraine overnight. He ruled out sending direct military aid before taking office, and there is no sign that position has changed. He has also said he does not believe Ukraine's EU accession should be fast-tracked, though he does not appear to oppose it in principle. Hungary will likely maintain some economic relationship with Russia, particularly around energy, given existing infrastructure and contracts. What changes is the obstruction. What changes is the collusion. And in this war, removing one of Putin's most effective levers inside the EU is not a minor development. It is a strategic rupture. The deeper significance of Magyar's victory is not logistical, it is psychological. Putin has spent years constructing a narrative for domestic Russian audiences and for European populations alike that the West is fragmenting, exhausted, and quietly turning away from Ukraine. Orban was the living, breathing proof of concept for that story. Every time he stood at a podium and called EU support for Ukraine fanaticism, every time he flew to Moscow while his EU counterparts stood united, Putin had a character he could point to. That character is gone. The myth it propped up is gone with him. Democratic resistance to authoritarian capture is not dead. That is what Hungary just proved. Even with a captured media, even with years of engineered fear, even with Russian influence operations running at full speed in the final weeks of the campaign, the opposition rose and won decisively. Other nations watching their own institutions erode under similar pressure will take note. The cracks in Putin's European influence network are visible now, and they are spreading. For Ukraine, the road ahead just got meaningfully clearer. Funding moves faster, decisions land harder, information stays where it belongs, and Russia fights the next phase of this war without its most reliable voice inside the room. We cover these shifts as they happen, every day, not once a week. If this kind of analysis is what you've been looking for, subscribe so you never miss a development. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Magyar's victory actually changes the trajectory of the war? And if this gave you something worth knowing, share it with someone who needs to hear it.